I've been running this small business for about 8 years now, and there have been many times where growth just didn't feel easy. My instinct in those moments used to be to do more. I would add more marketing, more SOPs, more customer support. I would chase more because I thought doing more would lead to more growth. Getting through these plateaus didn't come down to adding more complexity to an operational maze I was building. No, growth actually came at each point from deleting things. The first thing I stopped doing and deleted from my business that led to growth was really around year 1 of my business journey. You see, around this time, I was working as a service provider, but I was also working as an office manager in my now husband's carpentry business. And in both businesses, the same problem was coming up. Frankly, we were young and in love and broke. And so when projects would come onto our plate, whether in my business doing virtual assistants at the time or in his business doing a kitchen remodel, we would both have this gut instinct of just saying yes to any project because we wanted the revenue. We wanted to get to that 100K a year for the first time. And in a year 1 of business, that felt insurmountable. But what became very obvious, especially in the carpentry business, but also in mine, is that if you have a $20,000 job, but the time and materials cost you $19,000 to deliver it, it's not actually a $20,000 job. You get the revenue, but the profit, the stuff that you actually keep at the end of the day, it's only about 1K. So it's not actually that good of a job to take on. Now, I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I was so naive about revenue versus profit when I first started. But when I look around YouTube, I still see these kind of revenue-based claims everywhere, which suggests I'm not the only one who doesn't realize revenue doesn't matter. Whether it's a video about how to make 100K a year as a virtual assistant or how to make your first $1 million launch, all of these claims and hype-based videos are focused on top-line revenue, which ultimately doesn't matter at all. I think it was about year 2 of my business when I read the book Scaling Up, and I read their line about how revenue is vanity and cash is king, and that really clicked for me. So after deleting revenue from being the main decision maker in my business, I replaced it with what I use today, which is runway. I calculate runway in a simple monthly spreadsheet. All I do is I take the amount of money I have in the bank, divide it by my monthly expenses, and I get a number in terms of months of what my runway is in the business. Whether I'm planning for the next year or talking to my team about where we are cash-wise, I'm always citing runway rather than any other vanity figure because runway puts everything in perspective and really tells you how long could we survive if we didn't make another dollar. For me, I always want to see at least 3 months in this category, and fortunately, we've been consistently above that. Now, speaking of team, the second thing I've deleted from my business is a default mindset that every person I needed to hire needed to be an employee. Now, I know in the era of everyone wanting to be a solopreneur for some reason, this may be strange, but when I started my business, I really wanted to have employees. I wanted that support, that consistency, everything about what employees entailed felt so worth the trade-off. It turns out I needed to delete this assumption about employees being the right way to do things in order to actually grow the business, because saving up until you can afford a full-time employee and then spending all the time and coaching and training and supporting them was a giant waste of my time as a small business owner. So instead, I shifted to defaulting to contractors. Our current team today looks something like this. We have core team members for core competencies of the business, areas that there needs to be consistency, support, continuity, and then we leverage contractors for things that are more spurtsy. Fixed deliverables, strategy, innovative new projects. We do contractors for all of those. That allows us to swap out contractors if people turn out to not be a fit, and even lets us change our strategy based on the contractors we have for a specific period. Currently, what that means is our core team members are often acting as project managers or program managers, where they're overseeing an area, but a lot of the strategy and execution is all being handled by people outside of the company who they are holding together as the manager of that function. I've definitely come to realize that some of the top talent out there is in the freelance market, not necessarily the employee market. And so it's been a really good shift for the business and also for our deliverables to have people come into the business and be responsible for results rather than the squishier KPIs that come with a core team member. One downside, though, is that because we have contract roles, we tend to hire more people and more often because each person is doing a smaller piece. So on that note, we may be hiring by the time you watch this video. Be sure to check out our website for job openings. Now, speaking of internal team members, the third thing we've deleted from the business over the years are internal meetings with those team members. Now, not entirely, I just want to be clear, I still love having one-on-one meetings with my team members on a weekly or so basis, and I do think there's value in getting everybody together to have some discussions about bigger problems. But these are intentionally rare. In the earlier days of my business, I would probably have anywhere between 2 to 5 meetings a week, even at a team size of 10. Fast forward to now, I typically have 2 to 3 meetings a week with a larger team and a much bigger business overall. So what do we do at ProcessDriven rather than those meetings? Do we just ignore each other? No. In fact, we're a pretty tight-knit team, but the way we communicate is through an asynchronous manner, which is just a fancy way of saying on your own time. So rather than team members calling me up saying, "Hey, Layla, I have a question on something," which would drive me freaking crazy and used to happen back in the day, instead, we use comments. To give you an example of this, let me play out something that happened earlier this week. My team member, Sarah, was working on creating some zaps to make sure that when clients booked coaching calls with me, they showed up in ClickUp, our software, in the right way. And she was trying to troubleshoot all of this stuff. Now, she ran into a hiccup in that project where she didn't have access to one of the tools she needed in order to have everything talk together. So in the olden days, Sarah would have put time on my calendar or called me on the phone and interrupted my day to ask that question. But the thing is, if I'm filming a video like this or if I'm on a coaching call, you try to interrupt me, it's either bad for you or bad for me. It just doesn't work well. So instead, what she did in that situation is she created a comment or a task that said, "Hey, Layla, fix this access issue when you have time. Thanks." And then she went on and worked on other things. Because the fact of the matter is, we help businesses systemize their operations. We are not solving world hunger. We're not doing open heart surgery. Nothing we do is truly an emergency. And so that task waiting 15 minutes until I finish my call for me to see it is perfectly okay and makes it better for both of us. It prevents an interruption, it prevents a meeting, and it still gets work flowing. The fourth thing I had deleted from my business that actually led to growth was the default that anything that was not clear was my problem to sort out. If the website broke and no one on our team was really in charge of the website, I would just assume responsibility. Similarly, if a client complained and no one was working that particular shift, I would just assume responsibility. I figured as the leader, I needed to model responsibility and take extreme accountability for everything. That turns out to be something I really needed to delete. And this one was not easy. I'm still working on it, but I needed to delete this in order for the business to grow. When I was acting as the catch-all do everything, the fixer of the business, I was acting as insulation for the team. If something got funky, I would be the suspension keeping them from feeling any of the bumps in the road. But the problem was, I couldn't just be the suspension in the car. I needed to drive the damn car, and focusing on smoothing out every bump really distracted me from where we were going, and the business results really showed that. So I needed to shift my mindset. The new practice I've replaced this with is the default to being someone else's problem. My job as a business owner is to do the things only I can do. Only I can steer the car, but anyone could act as insulation to handle an unexpected thing. And so if something unexpected comes up, my expectation, and my team is aware of this, it's their job to figure it out. If they are absolutely exhausting every option and none of them can sort out this information, bring it to me and we will solve it together, but it's going to remain their responsibility. And I know this sounds really simple when I describe it like this. It feels simple to me. I'm like, why did I struggle with this? But it's not as simple as you think. I had a client earlier this month, and her client had an issue come up due to a team member. A team member didn't do their job. And, it wasn't clear whose responsibility it was to fix it. The team member was out for the weekend. The business owner saw it. And her instinct, like mine, was to jump in and fix it because who else is going to do it? And that's exactly what I used to do and what we need to delete and shift. If a mistake happens, even when it forces you to let that client who had a bad experience wait 12 more hours until that team member's back on board, we just have to wait. We have to make it the responsibility of other people, because every time we stop what we're doing, we stop driving the car to make sure the road is smooth, the car starts going in crazy directions. Management and leadership is a job in and of itself. We can't just squeeze that to the side when issues come up, which unfortunately, especially for us small business owners, happens way too often. I know that because we have now surveyed over 5,000 small business owners in our operations assessment, which by the way is free in the description below if you want to take it. And from that assessment, we know what is normal for small businesses like yours and mine. And it's normal for the majority of small businesses out there to fix 2 to 3 mistakes a week in their business with their own personal time. And if you're spending all of this time being the suspension system, who's driving the car? Exactly. By the way, if you want to learn more about this step or any of the other steps, leave a comment with the step number in the comments below and I'll make a follow-up video. Let's get back to the video. But speaking of reality, the next thing I needed to change in my business if I really wanted to grow was deleting this idea of building things in my business just in case. Now, I am someone who's a bit of a worrier. I can play out scenarios in my head and I can anticipate exactly how things are going to go wrong. And in the earlier days of my business, especially around year 3, I want to say, I would spend a ton of my time trying to prevent mistakes from happening. I would focus so much on preventing mistakes, I wouldn't sell that next client. Just as a concrete example, in the early days, one of my very first hires was hiring somebody to do social media because I thought, I should do social media, right? I'm a small business. I need to have stuff on my Facebook page and I don't want to do it. This was me delegating for hypothetical return on investment. And surprise, surprise, just like most of us here, there was no return for that spend on social media. And there's whole sorts of other things that went wrong in that process as well. And really what I should have done is looked at the business and looked at the real things that were really slowing down fulfillment or things that really provide value and delegated those. And fast forward a year or two after that social media hire, I actually started doing that. I hired my first, core assistant who helped with customer fulfillment. Because unlike the social media person, this assistant took things off my plate that actually needed to get done and actually produced ROI and actually allowed me to serve customers and get revenue. So rather than serving the hypothetical, what could help, what could go wrong, what could be automated, instead, I was operating based on what actually made a difference and building off of that. Might be useful is also saying it might not be useful. It might be a giant waste of your time. So instead, with our clients, we're creating systems and processes and automations for things that actually help, where they actually provide value and they actually keep mistakes from happening. If you want to learn more about our extremely practical and tactical approach to systemizing small businesses using this mindset, I have a free training in the description below that you can learn kind of our whole approach. I think you'll find it really interesting if you've enjoyed this video so far. Now, speaking of doing things that you probably shouldn't be, the next thing I deleted from my business, which is also one that is still hard and I'm still learning, is the doing of tasks. And this is one I really only learned in this language, in this form, a few weeks back, where I had the great pleasure of spending 3 days with the one and only Seth Godin. If you don't know who Seth Godin is, you're missing out. Go get on your Audible, buy all the books. Seth Godin is a marketing mind who's pioneered a lot of the internet and a lot of what we think of as email and online marketing. And a few months back, in an act of random generosity, he opened up 12 spots to women from anywhere across the world to come work with him in his office for 3 days. The notes I put in my notebook from this section with him was around ruthless delegation. And those were my words, not his. But I realized even a few weeks ago that I was still doing some graphic design in my business. Why? Why was I doing that? It was a task. I kind of enjoyed it. I had some experience in it. But that task was a distraction and it felt good, but it was a distraction from the core work that I needed to do. And so I needed to delete that from my plate. I needed to ruthlessly delegate. If I could delegate graphic design for $50 an hour or $80 an hour, and I could then work with a client for more than $80 an hour, helping them systemize their business, I had an obligation to do that. And when it comes to stop doing tasks, the way I really internalize this is to think about doing fewer tasks and spending my time building more systems. Because one other line that Seth said at this event, which really stuck with me, is that you are what you do. You are what you spend your time doing. You are just the result of that. And so if I didn't want to be a graphic designer, I shouldn't be graphic designing. But who should I be? Well, I realize who I really want to be is a system builder. I want to build systems for things that work. I want to be a system sharer. I want to consult and teach others to use these things because ultimately I want small businesses to succeed and attract top talent and be profitable and successful and calm. And so to do all of those things, I need to be writing. I need to get my book out. That's what we're working on next year. I need to be teaching. I need to be creating YouTube content and working with clients. And I need to be building systems, not just for my own team, but systems that are portable and shareable by others. And so unless I could tie a task back to a system I was building that I could then share, I really shouldn't be doing it. Now, speaking of tasks in my business, there is one task that I have successfully deleted long ago that I think without deleting, my business would have never grown at all. And that is deleting emails. Yes, emails. Goodbye. Deleting email from our business was no small feat, but it was absolutely worth it, and it took a few phases to get it all the way through. The first thing we did is to stop using email internally. That is really from the tactics I told you earlier on, where we started communicating in tasks. That deleted internal email. The second thing we did is change our relationship with customers and external stakeholders to delete email there too. So anytime we work with a contractor now, if they are willing, we try to make sure all of our communication is in a project management system, either ours or theirs, aka no emails with contractors. Also part of number 2 is we deleted emails from our client communications. So back in the day, people would email us to cancel their account. Now we built a form. They fill in the form, the account gets canceled, little to no emails actually needed. Now with these 2 changes in place, I already had made a big shift where emails would not come to me directly. They would always go into a team inbox. We would use the software called Missive, and the team would handle the emails. They would escalate to me if and only if they needed to, and ideally they never need to. But there are still times that I need to work with people. And specifically for our clients in our guided program, I'm coaching them one-on-one, and I want them to be able to get a hold of me very quickly and easily. At the same time, I don't want to go back in that email inbox. I don't want to do it. So how do we manage? Well, for this one, I actually stole a tip from one of our guests inside the podcast we have for our members. Mike Morrison, the founder of Membership Academy, which is a membership about building memberships that I have been in for many, many years, and I highly recommend, by the way. He gave this tip about how he responds to client questions by creating videos back and forth. What he does is he uses Video Ask with his members, and he uses voice, video, or text to message back and forth in a dedicated platform just for talking with these members. I have since adopted that program and use that with my clients as well. And frankly, I kind of love it. What happens now is rather than having to wade through the inbox, I built a dedicated system for where people can actually message me back and forth when they are my coaching client. Yes, I'm still responding to these messages, but I'm able to do so using voice or video, which is a lot faster for me to communicate than to write a bunch of paragraphs in text. And for clients who are willing and for situations that warrant it, I'm able to reuse these videos for shorts or different content online, either directly copy and pasting with the client's permission or just rephrasing, which is kind of painfully obvious to me and frustrating that I didn't do it until now, because that's how this whole YouTube channel started. My original videos weren't made for you, respectfully. They were made for my clients. My clients asked me questions about how do I do this thing in this software, and rather than creating a text email just for them or creating a video just for them, I would create a video about the scenario and send it to them. The video was built for an audience of 1, but it ended up accidentally reaching a few more people than 1 person. And so doing this for this consulting work makes so much sense and is something that's really opened my eyes as to how I can keep email out of the business, but also build this flywheel that makes content easier and easier to produce. Now, I know for a video about deleting things and simplifying your business, this might have been a little long-winded, but I wanted to give you all the details, because at a high level, just saying delete emails and delegate stuff, like that sounds so obvious. But when you hear the stories, I hope you feel what I felt in the time, which is this wrestling. It's a lot easier to keep running around the operational maze than it is to break down the walls and build a new path forward. If you're really serious about having a business that runs without you, you have to watch this video here on the end screen, because the ultimate guide to systemize your business takes you step by step through the things you want to add into your business to actually build a business that can grow and scale. See you in the next video, and enjoy the process.